Welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. I'm Papa Pepper, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the questions and giving answers to those questions pertaining to my priority number 2, which right now is my root cellar and storm shelter build. So this has been a while in the making, but I freed myself up to have some time to invest in it and trying to knock out some things about it. And then when I'm not doing this, I'm working on the wood stove right now, about priority number 1. That one's almost done. But we're going to check out some things with this, answer a couple questions that some of our viewers and subscribers sent in, and we'll see if this don't help some of you gain some better insight into this project. Once it's closed in, will you have to keep a sump pump in it, or is the water table low enough for no worries? So with that question from Going to Green, I'm not going to have a permanent sump pump in here. What I do have is a sunk 5-gallon bucket. Right now it's got water in here and the floor is dry. We had a bunch of rain just a little bit ago. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off pretty much at ground level, at the level of the concrete. So if there does wind up being any standing water in here, it's going to end up going into this bucket. And if I need to drop a small sump pump in there to pump it out, I will be able to. But I'm also going to be having some 5-gallon buckets of water in here. Traditionally with the root cellar, you're going to want to have a dirt floor. Having that floor contact is going to help it with the humidity. And the thing is that the rock and clay here is good enough that I do not think I would have water coming in here, especially once it's covered and bermed away from it. But I didn't want to trust everything because I just dug down bigger than this whole area. So everything on the outside of here has been disturbed, and that gives a lot of opportunity because the ground's not very thirsty here. A lot of it's rock and clay, for if there was a high volume of water at the surface, it can run down those sides, potentially bubble around underneath and come up into here. And then also, depending on how much erosion it was doing underneath there, it would potentially drop the walls or compromise this entire structure and anything I put above here. So it's not ideal to have a concrete floor in a root cellar. Absolutely not. But because of how we were doing things and some decisions I made, I decided to go with that to try to achieve the humidity. I will be having 5-gallon buckets in here, and they're probably going to be covered or screened so I don't have things, you know, falling in there or something for the kids to play with, things like that. And over time, as that slowly evaporates or something, you know, I'll refill them. But pertaining to the sump pump thing, this is what I've got, and I don't foresee any water issues here because of how much covered stuff is going to be above and then how bermed up it's going to be. And plus, I'll probably put some gutters and then water storage on top of it too. So any water from the area will be collected and everything else should stay far enough away from it not to create any issues. And I do plan on monitoring, you know, the temperature and the humidity in here because you really want to have a pretty high humidity to store a lot of those root vegetables and other things through the winter. So I'm going to kind of need to creatively modify the environment because I removed what would naturally be happening with the cement floor. It'll make it easier to collect the water in here that does wind up in here, if any does, but it creates an issue for me that I've thought of, you know, a good remedy. I believe people have done that before. I think even Doug and Stacy, they were talking, I think, about adding 5-gallon buckets of water. They went ICF on theirs too. I started this probably right around the time Doug was doing his. It was either at the same time or slightly before. It's just time, resources, other things. I made it this far so far. Are you going to have screens in the outdoor kitchen? Stainless steel countertops for processing meat as well? If you look at the footprint that this thing has, when I do pour a concrete lid for it, it's going to be multi-purpose, and that it's going to be a floor for an outdoor kitchen. The outdoor kitchen, I'm thinking, is going to come up about waist height or counter height, so to say. And from there, probably there up, I might even do rock and mortar because I like the look of that. I'm getting some experience of that now with my priority number 1. But then from there up, I'm probably going to just kind of frame in some screens. I plan on having a number of cedar posts to support the structure and kind of be a framework to build it to. I plan on taking just some boards and kind of sandwiching, even kind of like you would, you know, making a window, but with screen. I'm probably going to either use some larger hardware cloth and a fine screen or something like that, because I want the fine screen to keep mosquitoes and flies and stuff out of there, because if I'm working outside, I don't want mosquitoes biting me. And if I have meat hanging in there or other things, you know, if I process a sheep or maybe shoot a deer, I want flies to be off of it. So I want it screened and small, but I also want a greater level of rigidity and, you know, and structural integrity than just a screen would provide. So I'm probably going to have a 2-ply screen, one being a larger hardware cloth or chicken wire or something like that, and then the other one being the actual screen you would normally do. So that's kind of part of how I'm thinking of doing this part of it. And for the countertop part, I'm going to have a mixture of things. There's probably going to be somewhere just to have a natural fire that heats up a plate of metal, and, you know, we can do some cooking on that. There will be some stainless steel countertops. I may incorporate a couple things into it that I already have. I may need to go get some out. I do plan on having water to it, and I do plan on having electricity to it. Electricity is already run down into there, but I also want to be able to collect rainwater and potentially use that, especially if things go really bad, or have some, you know, alternate light sources too, where I can use a lantern when it's not sunny out or something like that in here. But that's kind of some of the build and the idea for making this happen, and to be like canning salsa in the heat of summer and not adding all that humidity and heat into your house. That's going to be wonderful. I'm going to love something like this. Mama Pepper's going to love something like this. And the cool thing too is I can take our stuff from the garden, bring it over here, rinse it off, cut it up, throw it in a boiling pot, or, you know, whatever I'm doing, heat it up, either pressure can it hopefully, or hot water bath it. And then when it all seals, run it into the root cellar and, you know, rotate the stock. And then when we need to use in the house, grab whatever we're taking from there and bring it in the house, and just kind of have a certain flow, because a lot of the garden scraps will get dropped off across the way at the compost. A lot of the garden scraps go to the kitchen. So there's really going to be a pretty nice area through here. And I'm actually contemplating behind here putting up one of my larger greenhouses, but that's going to be a massive build with a lot going on in it. I'll explain that in a future video. If you guys really want me to talk about the ideas ahead of time, I can. Otherwise, just wait till I do it, and I'll show you as I do it. What source, gas, electric, will you use there? Will it be roof only or have walls? So yeah, for that source of stuff, there will be electricity. I don't know if I'll have gas there. Maybe some propane, but I'm thinking of primarily using wood as much as I can. That's going to be important. And of course, it won't only be a roof. There's definitely going to be walls, counter spaces, sink, some cupboards and stuff like that, hanging pots or pans or other things or stuff, you know, to use in the cooking. That's probably just going to be permanently stored out here. You know, we'll see, but I've got some ideas. What temp do you expect to keep it at, and how? As far as the temp, I plan on having it stay in here. I'm not going to do much to modify it, so I'm going to kind of see where it winds up and kind of be accepting of that. There's a couple things I could do with further insulation, maybe changing the door type, other things, but I'm impressed with the temperature down here already, and I think it's going to be really good. You know, in the heat of summer, I was down in here just working hard, leveling stuff, and it was so nice to be just even this far down in the earth and how much cooler it was. The insulation is going to kind of hinder some of the passing back and forth of temperatures, but even like this, this concrete is in contact with the ground. and you know, temperature will be transferred through there. So ideally, I don't even know what I'm aiming for. I just know it's going to be better than, you know, if I tried to store it up in the house cupboard or something like that. That's just honestly where I'm at on that.
Did you decide to put shelves along the wall?
So that's one that's come up a couple times is as I go with here, and that's one thing I do not know if I'm going to brick and mortar these walls or stone and mortar them, or if I'm going to pour concrete. I want these stairs done first. I'm going to talk to my guy before we do the roof, and we're going to see what we wind up doing on these walls. There's been the question asked if we're going to add the shelves to it. I don't know. There's going to be some interesting options for storage, especially with what I got going on above. And this is actually going to be taken at an angle, the stairs themselves. So how I incorporate different things into that is my choice. You know, because if you got something at an angle, you could always build into it and have some shelf depth down there. Could come in handy, but I'm not really sure. It's more of a travel corridor than potentially something for storage. If I had shelves where I'm trying to store things on as well, and I'm trying to carry things down to my root cellar, I could bump them as I'm, you know, coming down the stairs with an awkward load or something, and then cause the destruction of that item, cause us to lose something we were trying to save or something. So I don't really want to get in that situation. And yeah, I've got some play and some room to consider and think some more about what we're going to do with this stairwell. So that's the honest answer to that.
In case of an emergency, do you see this root cellar as a long-term shelter? If so, how will you stock it?
So that's a really excellent question. You know, how long-term of a shelter is this going to be? The primary use for this is going to be food storage, but it's also going to double as a storm shelter for us. How long we could potentially weather a storm in here, you know, there's going to be vents to keep the air circulating. There's going to be water down here as far as something to drink, and there's going to be a lot of food. A number of these even shelves, I'll show you. Like here, I could move this one up a little bit, and I'm squatting down right now, and have extra storage for people underneath here, an open area with a couple of chairs. I'm probably going to do that on the one behind me, because this is one of the narrower ones, and this one will be wider. But it's not just going to be, I'll show you, but it's not just going to be a narrow runway from here to there. You know, there's going to be under the shelf on this side where we can also have some room to work with. I'm not looking at this being, you know, a house to maybe take in people or anything like that. We are probably going to be setting up some other structures on our property that, you know, if somebody's passing through, if somebody spends the night, different things like that could be beneficial. But then also if things hit really hard and we wind up having to take care of others besides ourselves, having an opportunity to do that as well. You know, I did a video a while ago, does your, you know, survival plan for others? Your emergency plan, does it plan for others? And I don't really see a way to get around planning for others. You know, I'm not just gonna sit out there at the end of my driveway with a big loaded weapon and just make a pile of bodies of anyone who shows up. Some people talk like that. I wouldn't like to see it when it happens, but I wonder if they're really being honest or not. But our emergency plan does plan for others. This is not exactly where we're looking to store people. It's primarily for food, but it is going to be a storm shelter, and it's going to have that dual purpose because we need a good, safe place to be, say if a tornado rolls through here or if something like that happens. I want to keep my family safe, and I want to plan ahead of time so that we're able to weather the storm in that case.
Good morning, Papa. How did the building get there in the first place? I believe the cellar was already in place when I started following you. The stairs are looking good.
So that's a very good question, especially for those of you who've joined us more recently and haven't gone back and maybe watched the videos in our root cellar playlist. This is a hole that I dug. When I dug it, I was not planning to do it. I had just happened to fence off this area and let the sheep kind of nibble it down to nothing because it was a lot of just stuff growing up. And then a neighbor said, hey, I've got this Mini X. I think he had it rented for a couple weeks, and you know, if he had a couple more days worth of renting, he could get a free weekend. So for a very fraction of the cost of what it would take me to rent it myself, I was just able to pick it up at the end of my driveway, get a quick crash course in driving it, and be able to bring it over here This was something important that I wanted. It just got thrown on my opportunity list. I can dig the hole now for cheap. So I said, okay, we're going with it. But the first thing I did was I dug a small garden pond up on the other side of the poultry. I kind of put that in place to get used to it, you know, because that didn't really matter as much. And then I was able to invest some real kind of precision and the little bit of skill and experience I picked up digging this. So when I had it open, I knew that, again, it got thrown on my lap. I wasn't planning for it at that time. Wanted a root cellar, had the great opportunity to have a Mini X for cheap. And then when I had the hole, I knew given enough time, my nice little hole would just turn into this as it all caved in. So then I went ahead and picked up the ICF forms, got those all in place, and then poured the walls. And I said, okay, at least I've got this stuff in place, I've got it done. That was about 2.5 years ago. And again, it's held up remarkably. And then a neighbor and friend of mine was working on a project, and he says, hey, I've probably got an extra yard of concrete or more. Do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, what do you want for it? He says, just have it. You know, they're going to dump it out if, you know, we don't use it. I'm like, okay. So he sent over the floor for free. When I poured the walls, I didn't want to pour the walls and the floor at the same time. So the extra from the walls, I gave our little quail barn a floor, a concrete floor, just to use it up. Put it to use, do something good with it, and then when he had extra, he sent it over to do my floor here. So that's kind of how it got started, and then now I realize I need to do this soon. So it got moved up on my priority list, and here I am trying to knock it out. And you guys can, you know, go back and look at that playlist too if you want to check that out. So I'm trying to get this recorded for you guys while the sun is still out. It's already set at this point, but it's light enough I can continue because I want to put this out in the morning. Part of what I plan on doing for this part here, and I want to kind of give you a walkthrough and picture it a little bit. Across here, I want my cold smoker. I'm going to build a nice cold smoker. It's going to be a walk-in. It's going to be a good place to hang a lot of meat, smoke a lot of sausage, or, you know, whatever I'm doing, fish, poultry. And I'm going to have that kind of over here. I'll probably have the fire running in from the side. Have that coming across here. Then here is where I want to have the stairwell for the root cellar. This whole thing is going to be covered. I want to have the stairwell for the root cellar heading through here and heading down at an angle. If you've ever been in those houses where they make a lot of use of things, you'll see sometimes they've got a stairwell, right, going up, and then they have a door over here with a closet coming across, right? And you can open that closet and it just kind of comes at an angle. I'm thinking of having something like that from inside the outdoor kitchen, so we've got some storage space right there. And then I'm contemplating for this remaining part just having another place to store some firewood. I think I'm going to probably build a woodshed soon, but store some firewood, use it in the wood stove, you know, inside the house, or I can use it in a cook stove maybe in here, or whatever I got going on, or use it in my smoker. I'm also going to make some sort of a cold smoker. I don't know if that's going to be involved in here or if that's going to be somewhere else. And then as we head across the outdoor kitchen, my goal is where the outdoor kitchen ends over here, over on this area, to run an outdoor kind of a processing center, a slaughter station. Probably have some kill cones permanently affixed to the wall, maybe have a spot to hook up the chicken plucker, have a system of pulleys with some of the things you hang deer or sheep on, screened in, concrete floor, and probably even sloping to a drain that can drain off down towards the greenhouse a little bit. And that side of it too will probably even have its own door, so I'll be able just to open a door, you know, bring in whatever I just shot, if I shot a deer or if I'm processing a sheep, take care of some of the things I need to do, skin it, hoist it up. If I need to hang it for a while, hang it for a while, but have a screened in area that's kind of part of my permanent kind of butcher station. If I had 220 running out here, I do got a nice Hobart bandsaw that you could use to make some nice cuts of meat. Not really sure if I'm even going to use that. I know somebody else who might be able to, so I might send it that way. But that's kind of part of it. So going from pretty much a butcher station here to the outdoor kitchen here, again, nice walls on the outside. Probably come up with rock and then screened in above there. Nice roof, catching the water, having some water storage, having a variety of things in there to cook with, to process with, to at least do all our hot water bathing, possibly do our pressure canning, have all that in there, and then where you can just walk out and around and under and go into the storm shelter and root cellar. That's kind of some of this. One big building, whole area covered, just a massive, and again, it's not that extravagant, but it's going to have a good footprint as far as the space it takes. And I think a wonderful tool for our family, and something we can definitely use both now, as soon as I get it running, and then Lord willing, for years to come, as we continue to embrace this lifestyle and try to live a life that makes sense.
If you are going to put a building over the top, would it be cheaper to use floor joist instead of pouring concrete?
And that too is a good question. If I just had kind of some wood joists and did like a wood, that would be good. I think it'll be better for the root cellar and keeping temperature and moisture to have a concrete roof. And I also think it's gonna be a much solider, you know, floor for our outdoor kitchen. So that's the way I'm planning on going at the moment. I do appreciate every idea that comes our way and people looking at things from different ways, but that's my plan at the moment, and I have reasons I'm doing that. Plus, a lot of the rebar and other things are already bought. A lot of the wood for framing it is already bought. It's here, it's resources I have. I just have to put it to use by adding the concrete. So hopefully that answered your guys' questions. If you got any more as I continue to work on this, I can pause, you know, mid-work and kind of throw a couple answers in there too. That'll be fine. So ask away if you got them, and hopefully that gives you guys a better idea of what I'm dealing with here. And if I do a good job, I may pull it off and may become reality. That's the goal. We'll have to see. I'll see you next time. Papa out.
Thank you for watching.